By 554, Cyrus had crushed all rivals and become the undisputed leader of Persia. Now it was time to conquer the world. Yet, if he was going to build an empire, he would need a magnificent capital city to reflect its growing stature. In 550, Cyrus launched one of the most ambitious building projects anywhere in the ancient world, the Persian Empire's first great city at Pasargadae, located in modern Iran. Cyrus was a very innovative builder, and the building styles reflected the technologies that he found in the course of his various conquests. Like the Romans centuries later, the Persians were borrowers, taking the best and most advanced ideas from the cultures they conquered and then developing them even further into technologies that were uniquely their own. The art and architecture of Pasargadae drew on influences as far-flung as Assyria, Egypt, and Asia Minor, thousands of miles away. The stoneworkers, woodworkers, and general laborers who actually did the work were imported as slave labor from all over the empire. Pasargadae's showpiece was its two magnificent palaces surrounded by majestic parks and vast formal gardens. Among these gardens was the first known appearance of the astonishing Paradisia, the four-quartered wall Persian gardens. The gardens had over 1,000 yards of channels of carved limestone. They were carved so that water would enter small facements every 16 yards. The Paradisia also introduced the use of geometric designs into garden landscapes. It was the concept of the modern park as we know it. True to the Bible prophecy, Cyrus allowed the Jewish exiles in Babylon to return to Jerusalem. This earned him the loyalty of the Israelites, providing a buffer state between his empire and Egypt. This was an example of the multiculturalism that Cyrus understood was necessary to maintain peace across the far-flung empire. That empire stretched from Asia Minor in the west to the Indus River in the east. Now, Cyrus set his sights on conquering Egypt. But first, he decided to deal with the Pasargadae, a tribe from the southern deserts of Khwarezm and Kizil-Kum, in the southernmost portion of the Eurasian steppes. Before invading, Cyrus sent an offer of marriage to their ruler, the Empress Tomyris, but this was rejected. Cyrus responded by preparing for a full-scale invasion. Bridges and towered warboats were built on the Persian bank of the Oxus River, which separated the two sides. Empress Tomyris then sent Cyrus a message to not encroach on her land. She challenged him to meet her army in an honest and open battle. Cyrus accepted and marched his army to a location the Empress had selected, a day's march from the river into her territory. Learning that the Pasargadae were unfamiliar with the intoxicating effects of wine, Cyrus set up his camp with plenty of wine and food, then abandoned it, leaving just a small portion of his army there. A third of the Pasargadae army attacked the lightly defended camp, killing all of the Persian soldiers there. Then, finding the camp full of food and drink, the victors engorged themselves. When the liquor had taken its toll, Cyrus and the remainder of his army attacked with devastating effect. The Empress herself then led the balance of her army. The battle that followed was described by Herodotus as the fiercest of the ancient world. Cyrus was killed on the field of battle, and his body taken before Empress Tomyris. She ordered that the great Persian ruler's head be cut off. Then she dipped the head in a vessel of blood in a symbolic gesture of revenge. Cyrus was succeeded by his son Cambyses II. Cambyses' status as legitimate heir had been confirmed by his installation as king of Babylon during Cyrus's lifetime. As a result, there is absolutely no sign of unrest following Cyrus's death. Cyrus's expansion into the west had isolated Egypt's pharaoh Amasis by removing many of his local allies. Amasis conspired with a neighboring Greek tyrant, Polycrates of Samos, to assert their own power on the fringe of Persian territory. Evidently, Cambyses decided that the western frontier of his territory needed to be stabilized, and perhaps that Egypt could be advantageously annexed by war or diplomacy. 4 years of Cambyses' reign passed before the major expedition was launched. This interval was necessary for the massive program of shipbuilding and naval organization needed to prepare for any attempt to take Egypt. Cambyses, by investing in the naval technology of Phoenicia, created the Persian Navy. Amasis died in 526, and his son and successor, Psamtik III, failed to hold out against the Persians in a battle on the Nile. He was then besieged at Memphis. A contemporary report stated, "The great king of all foreign lands, Cambyses, came to Egypt, and the foreigners of all foreign lands were with him. They made their dwellings therein, and he was the great king of Egypt." Cambyses finally marched his army for Egypt in early 525 BCE. En route, he formed a treaty with the Arabs, who controlled the desert between Gaza and the Egyptian frontier. This allowed him to set up the base of Egyptian operations in Gaza. In the spring of 525, the Persian army crossed into Egypt, clashing with the army of Psamtik at the Battle of Pelusium. It was a decisive victory for the Persians, with one report stating that 50,000 Egyptians fell, compared to just 7,000 for the Persians. One account of the battle stated that one key to Persian success was that he put animals that the Egyptians considered to be sacred, such as cats, dogs, and sheep, in the front lines to discombobulate the enemy. Apparently, the Egyptians held back from launching their weapons for fear of harming the sacred animals and upsetting their gods. Psamtik and those of his army who survived the battle managed to hold up in the city of Memphis, which was then laid siege to by the Persians. After an unspecified length of time, Memphis was taken, and by the summer, all of Egypt was under Egyptian control. Cambyses now assumed the titles of King of Upper and Lower Egypt, and descendant of the gods Ra, Horus, and Osiris. He claimed to be a natural Egyptian, descending from the princess Nitates, a daughter of the pharaoh Apries. He sacrificed to the Egyptian gods as a sign of unification. However, according to Greek historian Herodotus, Cambyses' rule of Egypt was marked by chaos and brutality. Herodotus tells us that Cambyses did not honor the sacred Apis bull, but murdered it in a rage, whipped the priests, and desecrated royal tombs. Herodotus went on to claim that Cambyses was viewed by his own people as a despot, being half-mad, cruel, and insolent. Cambyses appears to have been content to remain in Egypt in the role of supreme ruler, pharaoh, in perpetuity. However, in 522, he was forced to return to Persia to deal with a rebellion. Prior to leaving for Egypt, Cambyses had appointed a man by the name of Pasargadae as custodian of the royal palace while he was away. Pasargadae took the opportunity to make a play for power. He put his own brother, Gaumata, in as the new king under the name of Bardiya, claiming that he was actually the brother of Cambyses. Cambyses was, therefore, forced to return to deal with the impostor king. However, he never made it, dying in transit. Some claim that, on the way back, Cambyses received a thigh wound which became gangrenous, dying 3 weeks later at a place called Agbatana. Others state that he came to the realization that he was unable to defeat the usurper and died by his own hand. The rule of the impostor king did not last for long. According to Herodotus, Phidimia, the daughter of Cambyses' uncle Otanes, found out that Bardiya was not really the brother of Cambyses. Her father organized a group of conspirators that included Cambyses' former lancer, a warrior named Darius. Gaumata was assassinated, and the conspirators had to decide who would become the new king. A contest was decided upon between the key contenders, by which all would meet at sunrise, mounted on their horses. The man who sat on the first horse to neigh at the sun would become the empire's new ruler. That horse happened to belong to Darius, and so it was he who was to become the third great ruler of the empire.